I've seen a lot of ideas thrown around in terms of video game characters people would love to see in Smash. However, most of the videos that I stumble upon essentially share the same interest for a fighter. Dante, Sora, Crash Bandicoot, Rayman, Shantae, Gino, and so on. There's nothing bad with giving a mutual cheer. I very much would love to see any one of those characters I just mentioned appear in Smash, playable or otherwise. But because I like to be original, I've drawn up a list of characters I personally would love to see in Smash. So without further ado, let me guide you on that list. Obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect game, at least in this universe, but Astral ticks all the boxes of a game that comes close to it. It has stylish, smooth combat, an amazing soundtrack that is really underrated, especially when compared to other action RPGs, well-designed levels with a compelling atmosphere that complements the tone of the cases, great characters with interesting designs, and an understandable and fairly complex story that doesn't get in the way of its defining feature, which is the gameplay. What more could you ask for, besides fixing some issues with the game's camera? This is serious, I hate falling off the edge because of this, it drives me nuts. These aspects are excellent candidates for representation in Smash, whether it's spirits, music, a stage, or better yet, a fighter. We already have Astral Chain spirits in Smash Ultimate, though Min Min has set a precedent for the future of DLC characters by defying the assumption that spirits cannot be playable characters. Min Min now doubles as a spirit you can still fight against, and as a character you will regret fighting against. With that logic, despite the protagonists being spirits, they are still in the running as a potential fighter. I'd imagine them to have a playstyle that reflects the gameplay of Astral Chain, fast-paced, flashy, and straight to the point. The protagonists are equipped with a weapon called the X-Baton, used to fend off the otherworldly threat corrupting the Earth. The X-Baton in the game has 3 weapon styles that they can switch between freely: Baton Mode, Blaster Mode, and Gladius Mode. That being said, they have a lot of tools at their disposal to keep opponents at bay and engage in some nasty combos up close. There's potential for a diverse character with a versatile playstyle, and that kind of character is right up my alley. Not to mention, the music that could be brought over to Smash should be a phenomenal inclusion. If it's not the character that I particularly like, then it's definitely the music. You can't go wrong with that. You've probably heard the name Skyrim thrown around at least once. Oh, what's that? Winner of over 200 Game of the Year awards? Oh, hold up, I'm getting another call. One of the best video games of all time? You must be joking. Oh, wait, there's more. One of the best-selling video games ever made? You see where I'm going with this? It's an open-world RPG where you do battle against dragons, become a criminal, scream a different language, and steal sweet rolls from helpless NPCs. The freedom to do as you wish in Skyrim is a motif in the Elder Scrolls games, but that's not what we're focusing on today. The gameplay is the point of focus. Dovahkiin, also known as Dragonborn, is commonly depicted in promotional material as a male Nord with a sword and shield. The tried and true formula for characters that sure do love to shout. As such, it's the most likely possibility for the base of Dovahkiin's moveset, should he make a playable appearance. I myself would appreciate a more varied pool of attacks over generic sword swings or shield bashes. You normally play from a first-person perspective in Skyrim. Weapons can be held either on the right hand or on both, with magic or shields on your left hands. Skyrim has a plethora of weapons to pull from. Not every weapon will be represented, of course, but there's a good few that I want to bring up. Swords, greatswords, yes, those are different, daggers, bows, staffs, maces, hammers, and axes. That's only with the right hand, of course. With the left, you have the option to wield a plethora of magical abilities, from healing to casting spikes of ice, to summoning your very own Flame Matriarch, whatever the heck that is. There's another important part of Dovahkiin's toolkit which I think needs to be mentioned. The Dragon Shouts. It's essentially a manifestation of ancient magic, formed through the use of the dragon language, made up of 3 words. I'm sure you know the most recognizable one. Oh no. One of them calls forth the animals of the wild to aid you in combat, while another cleaves the skies above you and changes the weather. Those are some of the more passive examples, but in a game such as Smash, you'd probably favour the aggressive shouts. That being said, Dovahkiin could be a mid-range fighter with relatively light weapons, such as the dagger or mace, to deal damage in quick succession, and the heavier weapons, like the axes and greatswords, as smash attacks with great kill potential, but more style and end lag. His specials can enlist the use of his magic or the shouts to buff yourself or cripple the enemy. Keep in mind the shouts in Skyrim do have a cooldown period depending on their usefulness, so that could be applied here. Devastating specials at the expense of limited usage. The music in Skyrim is normally quite ambient and peaceful in the overworld, though the tone goes a full 180 when an enemy is encountered. There are many awesome orchestral pieces that could be added, which certainly makes a fight between a godlike warrior and an electric mouse feel all the more tumultuous. Before you ask me, Ryan,
No, not again.
who the heck is Shinoa, and why does she deserve a spot in a game as big as Smash? Can you not barge in like that next time? Thanks. I've got my reasons. Number 1, her game is awesome, and number 2, I just want her in. Shinoa hails from Order of Ecclesia as part of the already represented Castlevania series. What makes her stand out from the Belmonts is the diversity in her move pool and her distinguishing gameplay, a far cry from the stiff movement and attack options that Simon and Victor had in their games. She represents the Order of Ecclesia, the only group in her world that has a chance of defeating Dracula after the Belmonts disappeared. As such, she has the ability to absorb glyphs, which grants her magical weapons and abilities. Shinoa can equip up to 3 glyphs at a time in her game, but why have that limitation in a game that breaks the rules? Most of the weapons that I mentioned in Dovahkiin can be accessed by Shinoa through the glyphs, so I won't reiterate them. Instead, I'll focus on how she'll operate in Smash. As is the case of most of the playable Castlevania characters, Shinoa's running speed won't be off the charts, though she's fairly agile overall. Her mobility excels in the air however, given she is capable of double jumping once you've reached a certain point in her game, and thus, you would want to be relying on her aerials to initiate combos and keep the opponent at bay. Unlike the Belmonts, who places heavy emphasis on the use of projectiles, Shinoa specializes in quick close quarters combat with a few instances of projectiles with the bow and blasts of magic. You also have the option to combine the glyphs you've equipped into one devastating attack in Order of Ecclesia, the result being called a glyph union. This would be difficult to implement into Smash, since such attacks can only be used sparingly, and there are a lot of them. However, there is one particular glyph union that I'd like to see become a final Smash, which is Universitas, a powerful move combining light and darkness glyphs to tear a hole in time and space, damaging the enemy severely. As for the music, it's safe to say Castlevania never disappoints in that department. Twilight Stigmata, the music track you're hearing right now, is only a remix of the main theme from Order of Ecclesia. The OST of her game is amazing, especially for being compressed onto the limited sound chip of the DS. She'd be a wonderful inclusion overall. Her moveset is brimming with the potential for one that is unrivaled in variety. And hey, we could always use more female representation in Smash. It's weird enough that a game like Ring Fit Adventure exists with such a distinct concept, fighting out a voided out dragon using the power of squats. What would be even weirder, and yet funnier, would be seeing these characters upgraded from a spirit into a playable fighter in Smash. The core gameplay of Ring Fit Adventure hinges on the movement of your body. But of course, Smash is a game for people that have never had a shower in their lives, so we won't encourage that. Attacks in Ring Fit Adventure are performed using various types of exercises designed to train essentially every part of your body, such as the abdominals and the pectorals. Depending on the exercise, your attacks can conjure up energy-based fists or feet to land a blow on the enemy whenever you successfully perform one rep. Wii Fit Trainer in Smash actually performs the exercises as a means of offense, and the Ring Fit Trainee naturally applies that formula by exercising in a similar manner. The key difference between the two is the mystical talking ring that converts your exercise into attacks and such. In the overworld, the ring is utilized heavily to overcome obstacles that wouldn't normally be triumphed over. Abilities like forming a boat and rowing it across the rapids, or breaking boulders with Gotenks' galactic donuts, could be implemented in one way or another. The trainees run at a blinding pace in Ring Fit if you jog more intensively, hence their running speed would be comparable to Zero Suit Samus, who is currently the 6th fastest character in the 75 strong roster. As opposed to the Wii Fit trainer, the trainees would be boosted in strength, speed, and overall mobility through the powers granted by the ring. If we're speaking range, the trainees could have disjointed hitboxes on their attacks at the expense of more lag attached to them. It does take a short while for you to land a hit in the game, since the time you spend on it is dependent on the intensity of your exercise. There's often a certain number of seconds you need to hold a position like a plank for, so the attacks in Smash wouldn't be as fast as you'd expect from a character with the word fit in their name. Music-wise, the soundtrack for Ring Fit Adventure is surprisingly wonderful, given it is an exercise game first and foremost, as expected of the music department over at Nintendo. Tracks that play in the overworld aren't much in the way of adrenaline pumping, more so to build the atmosphere of the worlds you go through and give them some vibrant ambience. The battle themes, however, are the ones justifying the sweat dripping down your forehead. If there's any other Nintendo IP that needs more representation, it's definitely Ring Fit Adventure. It's shameful to think I started with the Paper Mario series through Sticker Star, a game which the fanbase looks down upon for discontinuing the RPG formula that players loved in the first two iterations. That being said, Sticker Star set a precedent for introducing new mechanics to add more variety to what Paper Mario is really capable of, outside of the usage of the hammer and his signature jumps. I wouldn't imagine Paper Mario to punch and kick in the same acrobatic manner as Mario, due to his lack of animation in his attacks. Throughout the series, Paper Mario has received help from countless companions to aid him in battles, so it should be a given to have some partners represented in Smash. His moveset could combine elements from the first two games in the series, and from the more recent iterations depicting him with a papery white outline. There are variations of the jump and hammer attacks in the original Paper Mario games that can be used as a base for his rudimentary attacks. His specials are free game for how it could incorporate the other more bizarre attacks as seen in Sticker Star, or the beloved partners from the first two games, the most notable of whom be Goombella and Yoshi Kid. Sticker Star utilizes real-life objects to obliterate the enemy, including things like scissors, a fan, and a fridge. A fridge? Yeah, Paper Mario is a bit absurd when it comes to innovating the gameplay, and that's exactly why he'd be a fun inclusion akin to Banjo and Kazooie. In my opinion, he's probably the most likely character in my Fighter's past to actually become playable. Sure, it wouldn't be on the same level of hype as say Master Chief or Sora. The moveset is a make or break deal for me in wanting to try out a character. I don't play Banjo and Kazooie as frequently since their attacks are cut from a similar cloth to other characters on the roster. Paper Mario on the other hand will certainly stand out as a unique fighter. His series also has an array of outstanding music to choose from. Being a Nintendo title, it would be amazing if they included as much of the soundtrack from the franchise as possible.
Your Honor, I would like to make a case for Phoenix Wright to join the fray in Smash Ultimate.
Very well. The defense may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Ace Attorney franchise is a prevalent example of the visual novel genre that is yet to be represented on the roster of Smash. Every game in the series has been present on a Nintendo platform, so Mr. Wright's inclusion would be justified due to his strong connections to the company. Furthermore, this series has over 7.3 million copies sold worldwide, which is an excellent statistic given most of its games were released on handheld devices. A source gaming poll with over 4,000 responses places Mr. Wright as number 10 in a top 50 list of the community's most wanted characters. His reputation and fan demand is undeniable.
As far as the conceivable moveset goes, Phoenix isn't known for going on the offense since his occupation is literally a defense attorney. We can, however, take notes from his inclusion in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, where he was portrayed utilizing various objects as evidence to attack the opponent. Each evidence had their own functions, and when 3 legitimate pieces of evidence were collected, Phoenix could enter turnabout mode, in which he dealt blows with his signature pointy finger. He'd have a very passive aggressive playstyle, with Phoenix examining the environment as if it were an investigation to attack the enemy. That sounds hard to imagine, but anything you do in the world of fighting games is considered an attack somehow. It would suit the wacky charm of the Ace Attorney series very well. For a franchise with gameplay fixated on the legal system and murder cases galore, it doesn't really take itself too seriously. But the music is something to be serious about. I know, I gush over about the music in particular every time I talk about another fighter, but it's an aspect of a challenger pack that I really look forward to as well. The objection and pursuit themes I have played throughout the series is probably the best reward in game for showing the correct evidence. In my case, Phoenix Wright in Smash would be a dream that I hope will come true. And there you have it. Those 6 are the characters that I personally would love to see in Smash. I had the idea for making this video before I even considered bringing back my channel, so I'm glad I finally got to make that a reality. I've been thinking back and forth on the characters that I wanted to put on that list, Noctis from Final Fantasy XV and Oliver from Ni no Kuni, or honourable mentions. They were really close to making the list, but I decided to cut them and have the characters that speak to me the most on an emotional level. I don't mind at all if they aren't playable characters in Ultimate. 4 of them are already in a spirits, and that's good enough for me. Let me know down in the comments who you would like to see as playable fighters, and I'll see you all soon. Have a good one.